This is a video demonstration of SpatialXL, which shows the GIS functions of SpatialXL. SpatialXL is an add-in to Microsoft Excel, which gives Excel full spatial functionality. When you install this product, you will get a tab here called SpatialXL, and this opens up a ribbon. And when you click on Show SpatialXL, it will open up a spatial area where you can see your mapping area and a layer control on the right-hand side. In this case, I've got Google Roads as a background. I can also turn on Bing Maps and any other offline layers as well of mapping data. To start working with SpatialXL, we are going to add some data to the map. It's very simple. We have latitude and longitude columns in our data here, and SpatialXL will recognize this. So we will just go Add Excel Layer. And I'll just take the default settings and click OK, and there my data is on the map. To show you where the data actually comes from inside the layer, you can see that the layer type is Microsoft Excel, and the range is this particular sheet here called Own Stores from column A to column O. So it basically picks up all of the data that we have added automatically. If the columns are called something else than lat or long or latitude and longitude or X and Y, maybe something like old latitude, old longitude, for instance, and so on, you have to then do a geometry extraction where you have to specify that you're loading points and what your columns are and where they come from. Very simple to do once you just open up these dialogues, and you can just set these, no problem. Now, SpatialXL has a feature that is not available in any other package, and this feature is called Storyboard. When we work with storyboards, we have different nodes set that we can set up inside our storyboards that will help us navigate our data and also come to conclusions about our data. So in this case, I set up some themes of data in here. This initial theme here in this node is basically an icons theme for the titles of my shops. I'm just going to remove this layer since I've already set up the data before. And then if I want to see some views around this, etc., I can just open up my other nodes. And if I click on my provinces node over here, it'll float my particular map, and it will basically theme this by province. Then I can also have a docked view of this. So all of these views are set up as the full application state inside the storyboard. And now I can also look at every single one of these themes separately with various things that I've turned on or off. And I can go through data like this. I can also use this to clean my data. So if I get to a particular area such as Limpopo, and there were some errors with my data before, I can turn on an annotation layer, which will show me that there's an issue with the points down here that is incorrectly classified, and then we can go ahead and clean it up. So this is a nice way to navigate our data and to clean it up using SpatialXL and the Excel side as well. SpatialXL works with different layers like we used to in other packages as well, GIS packages. The layers on top are drawn first and the layers below are drawn last. So if you wanted to see something, you can drag a particular layer higher or lower, and it will reorganize that according to what we're looking for. We also have different column choosers here. In this case, we've got a visible items column and a total items, so that if we do some filtering, let's do some Excel filtering here. I'm just going to dock this back into my application. So let's say that we want to see data here maybe only in the Eastern Cape province. I can apply a filter like that, and it will filter our data that is not in that particular province and only show me the Eastern Cape data. Now, from this, you can also see the visible items is 20 out of 20, which means all of the Eastern Cape items, and 0 from the other provinces are showing. So Excel filters work very well to actually look at this data. I can do another kind of more advanced filter where I can say, show me data that is greater than maybe 3,500 in this case for this particular volume. And that further filters our data as well, so that only 9 out of the 20 are visible. And that helps us really to find data and really pinpoint what we're looking for. There's many different themes that we can set up in SpatialXL. So I've shown you the basic provinces theme, which is a color theme. We can also have a volume sales theme. I've had one here where I've only isolated the high numbers. If I turn on all of the numbers, you can see that we have multiple themes that we can use here. These are very powerful as well. Here we've got multiple indicators. So we've got a dot in the background that gives us the color of the particular volume, and then we've got above them a pie chart as well to show particular sales and how they are different. So if I zoom in there, you can see that better. We've got a tool in SpatialXL. Let me just set my theme back to default theme, called the inspector. Now when we use this, I'm just going to select a point over here. It will basically show you what we've selected here and show you data about that. So that's the data that we selected. Now we can also select that row in Excel, and as you can see in the back here, it's gone and selected that exact row in Excel as well. Now the same thing with just selecting data on the map itself. So let's say that we want to look maybe at these points over here, which might be incorrectly classified, or some of them might be. We can now go and select the selected in Excel. And in this case, we are working with our own store data. And we can color the background and select them, and then do a filter by color to see what data we've selected. If I take my selection off here, you will see that it's only that one point, which is actually filtered out, that we selected over there. So we can very easily select between the two different sides, from the Excel to the map and the map to Excel. So let me just take my filters away here. So just to show you also how it works the other way around, I can select, for instance, these 3 lines over here, and I can say zoom selected. And it's basically own stores, and then there's where all the ones are. I can also highlight selection, and there are some of the highlighted 2 down there and 1 up here. So we can do that. We can of course do that with a single item as well. Zoom selected. I've got radius as endpoints as I'm basically selecting, so there is the one that I've selected over there. So the interaction goes backwards and forwards between Excel and the map. I'm just going to go through some more advanced layer properties just to show you what you basically get with SpatialXL. Let me just turn my selection off. So if you go in here, the data that we can show is basically from various different data sources. We've got mining formats in here, Google Maps, like you've already seen. We've got KML and KMZ file layer loaders, which is basically comes from Google Maps. If you do save any of your work on Google Maps, that's the file format that we get. There's various things. I won't go into all the detail of this. Some of them are CAD formats. We also read straight from databases. So we work with Oracle, SQL Server, and other databases as well. And of course, we read Esri shapefiles natively as well. And we can also save to a lot of these formats as well. So there's almost no limit to the file formats that we can read in SpatialXL, and it can all be in the same environment. Even 3-dimensional data we can bring in at the same time with 2-dimensional data. So we have no problem basically bringing data from any source across, as long as it's got a format that that's published that we can read. In the styling side, I've already shown a little bit of styling. Images and icons can be set here as well. and so on. Line images for roads we can set, and so on. And in the text side, I'll just show you what the text labels look like before I go in there. So let's say that we want to look at the name of a particular store. I might have set them to be visible only at a lower depth. So here we go. You can see the text labels appear there. Now, if you zoom out, you'll see that if we had text labels on at that zoom level, it would be so messy, we wouldn't be able to really see anything. But when we zoom in, then we're in a position where we really want to start seeing our text labels. So you can set that up in here in the properties side. And we can actually say it must only display from scale 0 to 100,000, and we can also select where the positioning will be. So we might want it in the center if it's an area or a polygon, or maybe at the top right, or etc. In this case, I didn't really mind. And then we can set effects as well, halos around the text like this one has, and background color, etc. as well. There's really very fancy settings for SpatialXL in terms of text labeling and different theming options as well. We also have number themes that I've already just touched on. If we go into thematics here and colors, we can also set color based on number ranges with the different best fill options. In fact, if I go into my volume sales, I'll make that my current theme. You can see here how we've set up the number theme over here. You can choose your own numbers as well. You can also say if it should autofill and do a best fill to look for more numbers in a particular area, or if it should just do a sort of step-by-step filling, etc. So we've got very good ways to do that. We can also theme by size. So in terms of this volume in thousands, we've done from 10 millimeters to 50 millimeters, and that can make the dots bigger if the volumes are higher. And then we also do heat maps as well. I think I've got heat maps down here in our clients section. There we go. So we do full heat mapping like other GIS tools do, where you can set your granularity as well, and the different numbers will appear in terms of your heat map volume depending on what's displayed on the screen. I'll just take you through any of the other items here. All right, so we do work with projections as well. In this case, we're projecting to the normal lat-long projection, but we have all of the standard map projections in the world listed here. So you can see from this, they are all loaded and listed. So if you need to project data to a particular projection, you can choose it here. Now, depending on whether the data, how the data is set up, sometimes with CAD files there is no projection. You can also set up your own or even move it and do a projection transformation on the fly to actually locate your data if there was any problem with projections. Just so you know, we also have the ability to look at image files and read the side-by-side file, which has the data of what projection and what the corners are of that particular file for placement as well. Here's some of the input transformation. These are more advanced features. I'm not going to go into detail on them, but you get the idea of what you can do with SpatialXL. Now we can load, as I've said, many data files. I'm just going to show you how we bring in a shapefile. In this case, I'll just do a drag and drop, just because it's simple to do. So let's bring in the district municipalities shapefile here. So basically, I just drag and drop that onto my map area like there, and then I can start working. I can move it down, for instance, below my points. Maybe I'd like to move it down beneath my shopping centers over there. And I can do different theming and so on and this as well. So as you've seen there, it's quite nice how easy it is to set up the, let's just color them by province. Let's do it like this. Just do a nice coloring over there. And okay, there we go. We've done a coloring by province as well. So we can just bring it in quite simply by dragging and dropping. Now, I'll just remove the file that I've just added because I've got some others that I've added as well. So what we can also do is we can move data from a particular shapefile out into Excel so that we can actually work with the data in Excel, and that sort of breaks the link to the shapefile and brings it into Excel as well. So I've got a particular file here that is called lines. I'll just show you how this works. So I've got a lines shapefile, which you can basically say would be maybe possibly power lines or some pipelines or something like that in that regard. So if I want to work with this data in Excel, I can simply go move to worksheet, and I'll just select all of it and say I won't worry about linking the data. If I wanted to keep the geometry in the original file and link by ID, I could do that as well. But I'm just going to internalize this so that we actually lose the original shapefile and just have this inside of Excel. And then when we do that, you can see column A here is hidden. You can unhide it quite easily. Won't worry too much about that, but that's got the geometry in for those pipelines. And if you're looking at the line shapefile here, it's no longer a shapefile, it's actually a Microsoft Excel file. So we actually can then control the data that we've just had in a shapefile, we can control with Excel. So I'll show you how we do that. So let's say that we want to do a number filter on the costs of maintaining these pipelines, for instance. So let's say greater than, let's try 400,000. I don't quite remember what values we are in here. There we go. A number of pipelines have now disappeared to show where the costs are highlighted of only 400,000. Of course, we can do all the different colorings and stuff like we've done with our points as well. So we can easily work with areas, we can work with lines, any kind of shape, and of course points as well. So that just shows you how easy it is to use SpatialXL and even to move file across into Excel and keep it inside Excel if you want to do that. You can do the same with databases. If you have data coming from a database and you'd like to temporarily move some into Excel to have a better look at it, you can do a move to worksheet and then keep on linking the data or put your entire geometry in your worksheet as well. In terms of navigation, it works very similar to most of the GISs out there. You do a simple, let me just turn that off, mouse wheel in and out for zooming. You can use this particular zoom button to get in and out. It's quite granular as well, so I can, for instance, go right down here. I can turn on my satellite imagery to see exactly how something looks down there, and you can get a really good idea of how things play out. So navigation is really simple and easy and very, very fast. We also very much focused on large data sizes because we have a very strong mining background where we often deal with many hundreds of thousands of items at a time. So for instance, in here you can see just with that heat map we're already working with about 200,000 items. We also have the ability to have multiple views, so you can set multiple views, and we can also turn our data. You can view from top or along different axes. So if you have three-dimensional data, you might want to use some of this functionality. We have the ability to do fairly simple drawings in SpatialXL. So in this one instance, I had a gap analysis. Let me just show you how those looked. And I drew these different circles and saved them to this particular layer and set the settings. So there's a whole drawing toolbar where you can draw points, lines, strings, polygons, etc., circles, and so on in 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions. And we have some other more fancy kind of drawing and editing features as well. I won't go into that in great detail, but just know that they are there, and the advanced videos will show you how to use them. Now, in terms of analysis, we have a whole bunch of different tools. We've got a buffer tool where we can buffer selected elements and put a buffer around them. We can clip layers to only clip to what we can see on the screen, or clip a particular area. We can also do a layer from selected items and create a brand new layer. We have the ability to do Voronoi if you do use them at all. We use them for some of our analyses. And in utilities, we also have some more very specific editing functions, which again are more advanced features. Our spatial tools include the inspector, which I've already shown, registering images. So if we bring in an image from outside, a JPEG or PNG or whatever, we can actually register that and move that around on the map to get it in the right place. We do have a very simple measure tool. I just want to turn on my other background maps. Let me just show you how that works. So we basically can start drawing a line, and it will tell me how long it is exactly and what area it covers as well. And when I've finished my measuring, it will show you what the total meters are and how long each one of the segments are for this particular line. When I just zoom in and out, that disappears again. So there's a measure tool as well that we often use. We also have a copy coordinates tool where we can pick up coordinates, especially if data is incorrect, to clean up the data. One of the features that we have of SpatialXL, which is very usable, is a classify feature. So what we can do in that case, I think we've already done it here, but I could select a particular column here, and I could say classify my own stores, and then using a particular shapefile. So for instance, the file that we added earlier, which I think, let's say that we want to classify by province, and the classify column I'd like to use is the province name. And when I click on classify, it will immediately do a classification and immediately classify against that particular shapefile to put on the name of every one of the provinces that's in this particular sheet for every row. This feature is very usable when you have your own areas which might not follow exact boundaries, etc., or you get new points in that you'd like to just classify, and we use it all the time. We've also got a tool to aggregate data. I've got a very specific gap analysis video that shows more about aggregation, but we can aggregate data, let's say for instance in the demographics down here. We've got demographics data here, and we can use an aggregation to get the number of households underneath a particular area, etc., and do some very nice analytics with that data. So that's basically like combining different layers with each other and bringing data together underneath a particular area. We also have the ability to do clustering. So I've got some territories here, and we can actually show, let me just show the sales groups. So we can do clustering. These are some sales groups, and I think if I show my Cape territory, you can see the clustering over there. Let me just turn my theme into a new group. We used a cluster tool here to level this so that we selected points, and it would keep them together and try and sort of get a similar number of points for each grouping. We've got very fancy tools to do that, yet they're very simple and easy to use, and that can help you break up data and keep them contiguous, yet cluster them very well. Now we can also save to other formats. So we have the ability to take a shapefile and, for instance, save that to our internal format, like spatial view files, or we can sometimes bring data from CAD files in and then save them as shapefiles as well. Similarly, when we've got data in Excel, we can also then save it as a shapefile. To do that, you would simply go into Save, save layer data to file, and then you would choose the format that you'd like to save into, and you would simply save. Now we also have a feature called bookmarks. I don't think I've set any up, but let's set up 1 or 2 here. Let's just say this is my Cape view, and then let's do another view. Let's say Durbanville. Now if I click on that, that'll toggle between these 2 different views. So those are bookmarks to kind of quickly find your way around. Of course, we also, the fancy, real fancy bookmarks are actually our storyboards, and they are much nicer to actually use and bring things around. We can just go into different themes, and we can set up different areas to look at, and like for instance here we can see the different brands that we've got. We can look at a competitor layout. This one is in City of Joburg, where we can look at our competitors, and it'll turn on the different icons for competitors and so on. Here's some of the heat map themes. So of course this is much nicer to use maybe than bookmarks, but bookmarks are there mostly just to do quick navigation while you're busy looking at something, so that still has a place as well. Now we've also got something called dashboards, which is really a very nice feature. So in this case I did some work for a fast-moving consumer goods client with some particular gaps where they needed to be placing stores, and I can now look at each one of these gaps separately and get some data about them. And here's some of the dashboards that we can display. So if I select this particular area, you can now see that this is a breakdown of the demographics, etc. for this area that I've worked on, and the same with the other gaps as well. And you can see how the dashboards change for particular areas. So these dashboards are actually designed inside SpatialXL. In the dashboard section, and there you can set up very many dashboards, and they can be different. They can have multiple graphs, charts, and things like that. In fact, I can show you the designer for that. So there's a designer of the dashboards that we were just looking at, and I can go and set coloring, bring in different data from my map and from my database, whatever I'm working with, and it's very easy to do. That is the demonstration for SpatialXL for GIS. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you.